You're very welcome to the Christian faith in 100 objects, and especially to this topic when we're going to think about the meaning of truth. What is truth? Why does it matter? Why is it important? And just let me check that all my video is coming through. Yep. Good. Really nice to be with you. This is a great topic. Truth. What is it? Does it matter? Do we care? Well, it sounds very deep and slightly abstract, so let me put it in a simpler, more personal way. Do you like it when people tell the truth to you? Do you like it when people lie to you? We kind of know the answer to that. The truth is a good thing. We don't like being lied to by, we don't like being led astray, being misled. But when we start to define things, well, what is truth? It becomes a little bit tricky and a little bit abstract. So just to walk around this, not to go directly, but to walk around the topic a bit. The truth is something, I think there's two areas. It's something to do with the way we speak. So when my words match what I'm really thinking, we'd say that someone is being truthful. Oh, I will call you tonight at 7 o'clock. Well, I say those words to you, I will call you at 7 o'clock. Am I actually thinking in my mind and believing that I will call you, or am I actually thinking I've got no intention of calling you, I'm going to be doing something else? So the words that I'm telling you, you think that they are matching what I really think and believe, but in fact, there's a mismatch, there's a deliberate lie there. My words, what I communicate, and what I'm thinking. But equally, when my thinking, my understanding fits with reality, with the world out there, we think about this as being what the truth is. I can say to you, oh, I've heard this news, whatever it is. I've heard this news. Or I can say to you, oh, the sun is shining outside. Well, I'm looking outside. Here am I saying to you, I can look out my window. It's blue sky. The sun is shining. And you believe me. You believe I'm telling the truth. But you want to know, do my words match the reality out there? Is this news true? Is this information correct? So there's these two levels. Do my words, my communication match with what I'm thinking? And does what I'm thinking, what I understand, what I'm explaining, does it match with the reality, with the world? And this is the whole area of truth, as I say, a little bit abstract. Truth points to reality. It helps us connect with reality, with the world. And just to have a bit of fun with you, let's do some deep philosophy. Not too deep, but just for a moment. In the philosophical world, one of the best known definitions of truth is from St. Thomas Aquinas. I'll give it you in the Latin. Veritas est adequatio rei et intellectus. Roughly translated, veritas, truth, is the adequatio, meaning the matching, the coming together, the fitting together of rei et intellectus, the reality of the world and how we understand and think and speak. So to put it, as I've already said, in more ordinary language, when our understanding and our thinking and our speaking connects with the reality of the world out there and helps us understand it and grow closer to it, and helps us to share that reality and that the world out there and what's happening with you and with me. This is when we are living in the truth and sharing the truth. There are lots of different philosophies of truth, but this is a core definition that's at the heart of the classical tradition. And I think we believe it. It's not just a theory. We want to know what is real. We want to know that something isn't just made up, a fantasy, an opinion. We don't mind fantasies and imagination and opinions. That's fine, but we want to know the difference between fantasy and reality. The truth, it can be a very fragile thing. Even if we do understand it, it can still be very fragile. Just think of all the ways it is threatened in general and in our world today. We individually, we can become careless about the truth. Just we don't matter much. We're not very careful about what we share and communicate. We become a bit lazy, or it doesn't matter what I say, whether I get the facts right. We can fall into a habit of white lies and covering up things and thinking these little things don't matter very much. We can take a bigger step as individuals or as a society where, in fact, we are lying a lot, a culture of lies, of mistruths, but at least we still value the truth. I might say, I value the truth. I know people are lying and I can't find it very easily, but I know it's important. I'm looking for it. We can be overwhelmed, especially today, with fake news, information, broadcasts, social media, sometimes just random fake news from people sharing random bits of fake news. Sometimes, much deeper, something can be manipulated to do with power and money and vested interests and politics. The opposite of big conspiracy theories is just the trivialization of truth sometimes. There can be so much noise, there can be so many cat videos out there on the internet that we can never get through to the truth. We can never see the wood for the trees. We can get lost in all the trivia and the white noise of media and social media. But even deeper, very much in many traditions of philosophy, people have become suspicious of the idea of truth. Some philosophers would say, in fact, there's no such thing as truth. When people say this is true or this is real, they're just giving their opinion, their personal perspective. It's coloured by their worldview. There's a danger, they would say, and lots of this is true. There is a danger of one culture imposing its worldview on another, one person imposing their worldview on another, me imposing my perspective on you and saying, this is the truth, you have to follow it. The danger in history of cultural imperialism, one nation or ethnicity or culture saying, this is how we look at the world, it's our truth and it will be yours as well. So there's lots of deep philosophical, cultural reasons why people have become suspicious or cautious of the idea of absolute truth, as if it's like a stick you can hit someone with. And this has led some people, some philosophers, some historians to say, in fact, there is no such thing as truth, as true or false or right or wrong. It's just a question of perspective and opinion, and ultimately everything is subjective. It's how I look at the world, it's how we look at the world. It's impossible in this view to really share a truth. That the truth, a word, a statement, a belief would unite us in a common truth, which is not just me or you, but is the reality of the world that we can then share. Now, for most of us, it's kind of obvious that we can share the truth, but in philosophy, you can get so locked into a suspicion of truth that it can take away the foundations very often. And you can see how this would affect religion then. If you've got this idea that really everything is just subjective and personal opinion and cultural, you look at this in this way because you're this ethnicity or you're this background or you're this language, and of course you think like that, but there's no way of sharing truth with others, with people outside your circle, then of course it becomes hard to share any truth, scientific truth, poetic truth, the truth about the weather, the truth about politics, the truth about religion. And if I'm trying to share my religious faith, what I believe to be true with you, you might say, or an outsider might say, you just can't do that. This is just your opinion. You believe this just because you're you, or you were brought up with this family, or you were brought up with this culture. Everything is just subjective or cultural, and it's not possible to actually share your faith and lead others to a common truth. All right, all of that really is background. Let's get to Christian philosophy, because this is about the Christian faith in 100 objects. To sum up, Christian philosophy would say very strongly that there is such a thing as truth. Truth matters. Now, hang on. Yes, with all these philosophers, yes, it is very often complicated. There's lots of subjectivity. We need to be aware of how culture and language and your personal experience influences the way you look at things. And we can make mistakes, and we must be careful not just to impose our views and opinions on others. But having said all of that, still, there is a truth about the world, a truth about ourselves, a truth about life, a truth about God. And even if we're not clear about it, we know that it is there and that we can find it, and that we are creatures, human beings who are made for truth. We're not just made to be trapped in our own views and opinions. We're made for truth, to discover the beauty and the goodness and the reality and the truth of the world and of myself and of others and ultimately of God. There is a difference between fact and fiction, between reality and fantasy. It might be hard to find sometimes, but it is there. The truth, as Jesus says, will set us free. And in fact, people want to know the truth. They like to hear the truth. As St. Paul says, we're called to speak the truth with love. Not to impose it, but to speak the truth with love, to offer it with love. I think we know all this from experience, actually. Whatever you believe as a philosopher, we know that it is a blessing when we can trust people, that they are speaking the truth to us, that we can trust our leaders, our family members. I can trust my husband or wife, my colleagues, my children. And what a mess we get into when we can't trust people to speak the truth, or when we think there is no truth. It's not just personal. Society can't function if there's no truth. If you can't trust your politicians, your lawyers, your judges, if you can't trust a timetable when it goes up at a station, if you can't trust the information you read on a packet of food with the allergies and the ingredients, if you can't trust the teachers in your school or university to teach you honestly or to grade your exams honestly, if your teachers or your customs officers or your politicians or your civil servants want bribes and graft in order to give you a visa or a good result, then truth has fallen apart and society falls apart. Of course, this is not to be fundamentalist, as if there's only one kind of truth, as if everything can be reduced to one kind of truth and knowledge. In fact, this idea of truth, of my thinking and understanding and sharing, matching the reality of the world and helping you to deepen your understanding and be rooted in reality, this can apply in different areas of life, not the same. So there are truths, and this is very important for Christian philosophy. There are truths of science. There are truths of the moral life. There are truths of human love. There are truths of philosophy. There are truths of religion. They overlap, but they're not exactly the same. You can't explain everything about love or family life or morality in terms of mathematics. You can't explain the truths about poetry and the beauty of a work of art in terms of physics. You can't explain the truths of religion, of God, of Jesus Christ as a Christian in terms of chemical formula. There are different layers and levels of truth, but they overlap, and Christian faith respects the truth of these different areas. As a Christian believer, as a Christian priest, I respect the truth and the truthfulness of the physicist, the chemist, of the ethicist, of the lawyer, of the poet, of the husband and wife telling me about their marriage, of children talking about growing up in a family. We need to be open to the truth in the different ways that it presents itself, and respect the truth and honour the truth, as long as the truths don't contradict each other. And this is part of Christian theology and biblical teaching, that ultimately there is the one truth of God himself, the Creator, and that everything within his creation, the different areas of life and reality and the different truths, they will not contradict each other. They will lead us to the truth of the world and to the truth of God. Because God created this world, he revealed himself, he gives us the gift of faith. And this is another topic really, but it's why there cannot be a fundamental contradiction between science and faith, between religion and our knowledge of the world from other sources. God cannot deny himself, and no truth can ever contradict another truth, even though it might be hard to understand how they come together. We need the truth of science, the truth of love, the truth of morality, the truth of philosophy. We need the truth of religion. And as Christians, we believe we need the truth of Jesus Christ, because the heart of Christianity is Christ. And he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And St. John says in his gospel that the word became flesh and dwelt among us, full of grace and truth. So Jesus is not just someone who tells the truth. He's someone who is the truth himself. He is the truth of what it means to be human. A human being like us. He is the truth of God. He is the Word made flesh. He is the eternal Son of God, become one with us in the womb of the Virgin Mary, taking flesh and becoming man. So when we hear Jesus, we don't just hear him speaking about the truth like a great teacher or a guide or a philosopher. We see in Jesus the deepest reality of God and of ourselves as human beings and of our lives. He holds everything in his heart, his divine heart as the Son of God, in his human heart as a man like us, a human being like us. Jesus, we believe as Christians, doesn't just point to a better place, to the truth. He is that better place. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And in one sense, when we find Jesus Christ, when God the Father reveals Jesus to us through the power of the Holy Spirit, in one sense, we've already arrived. Here we are with him, living in the truth. But in another sense, he takes us on a journey to the Father through the power of the Holy Spirit, ultimately to heaven and to eternal life with him. So different truths, but they all connect. And we believe as Christians that all truth is fulfilled in Jesus Christ. Not that the other truths disappear, but they find their deepest meaning in Jesus. And if we want to know the truth and to make sense of all truth, then what a gift it is for us to know the truth of Jesus Christ. A few reflections on truth. Here is my object to symbolize the truth. And as ever, I'm very high-tech. I'm going to put a photo in front of the screen. This is the hound of God. This is St. Dominic's symbol. Can you see that? Let's take a good look. So here is a dog, a hound, with a flaming torch in his mouth. This is the famous version by Eric Gill, and there's a lovely, slightly different version here. Look at this one. Yeah. The Dominican dog, and I'll explain it now. Very often in images of Saint Dominic, St. Dominic, the founder of the order of preachers, the founder of the Dominicans. St. Dominic you see St. Dominic, and there is a dog somewhere in the picture with this flaming torch in his mouth, in her mouth. It's a reference to a dream that Dominic's mother is said to have had. His mother is called Blessed Jane of Azza, and she dreamt when she was pregnant of a dog with the torch in its mouth, running around the world, setting everything on fire. And she went to see a monk and said, "What does this mean?" And the monk said to her, "The child in your womb is going to be a great preacher who will set the world ablaze with words." So this is about the flame of truth. One of the Dominican mottos is Veritas. Veritas, the Latin for truth. Truth is at the heart of Dominican spirituality. And also this dog is a play on words. It's a Latin pun, if you like. I don't know many Latin puns. So here's one. Dominican, named after St. Dominic. There's no pun there. Dominican. It sounds like Domini Carnes. 2 words. Dominican, Domini Carnes. And Domini Carnes means dogs, carnes, like canine, carnes, of the Lord, Domini. Domini carnes, dogs of the Lord. The English Dominicans, they've got a website they called God's Dogs, Godz, Dogz, if that makes sense. I'll put a link on the video. Dogs of the Lord. So there's a lovely play on words here. The image of Dominic running around the world as a little child and then as a preacher, passionate, on fire with love for God and for the truth. The truth matters, with the flame of truth ablaze in his mouth, in this vivacious, often a greyhound, a really fast, energetic dog rushing around the world. The Dominican passion for truth. Veritas, the Dominican motto, and for all of us to see the beauty of truth. It can be the truth of science, St. Albert the Great Dominican natural scientist, the truth of philosophy and theology, St. Thomas Aquinas, the truth of beauty, the Dominican artist, Fra Angelico in the 15th century, the beauty of human rights and dignity and justice, Bartholomew de las Casas, a Dominican preacher, friar, lawyer, defender of dignity, of the dignity of the indigenous peoples in America in the 16th century. Today, we'd call him an anti-slavery campaigner or a human rights advocate. The truth in so many different places, but always a passion for the truth. This is what's so important to St. Dominic and the Dominican tradition, and to Christianity, and to so many others. So let's rejoice in the truth and be people of truth. Lovely to be with you. Thanks for sharing this time. We have another session tomorrow. I hope you can join us. And we're building up a little library now of topics in this series. So do subscribe to the YouTube Pause for Faith channel if that's helpful, and keep in touch. And I look forward to being with you tomorrow.